I'm Danielle, and this show is about gerrymandering, the crowbar politicians use to steal elections by breaking and entering into your district. They've been getting away with it, but we're gonna stop them.
Stop. House arrest.
I didn't exactly mean to, but recently I fell down the rabbit hole of research investigating gerrymandering in the greater Austin area. What I discovered, well, I was so outraged that I could not stop researching until I got to the bottom of it. The whole thing started with a simple question: who is my representative? So I consulted the great oracle, Google. I went online to whoismyrepresentative.com and I typed in my zip code, 78753. The greater Austin area has 5 counties: Travis, Williamson, Hayes, Bastrop, and Caldwell, 92 zip codes total. My zip code's there in red, snuggled up in central Austin. So Google, who's my representative? I thought it was a simple question, but the answer sure threw me for a loop. Whoismyrepresentative.com told me that my zip code, 78753, covering only 11 square miles, by the way, had 5 possible representatives. What? 5? How? And why? I did a double take, second guessing myself. Hold on, I thought. Is it possible I have 5 representatives? But no, I remembered. Each voter only gets 1 representative to the House who answers to a small local district of around 700,000 people. Each state also has 2 senators, and both of them are mine. Lucky me. But no, I only have 1 U.S. representative. So what's with 5? Here's Greater Austin in all its glory. It goes south from San Marcos, up through its capital, Austin, and further up north to Georgetown. From east to west, Greater Austin spans from Elgin to Dripping Springs. It's a big metropolitan area, yet my tiny little zip code was somehow cracked into 5 congressional districts, each with a different representative. In this district, my district, if I want to speak to my representative about a concern, first I need to figure out which of 5 representatives actually answers to me in my neighborhood. And wait a minute. How many representatives does Austin need anyway? The greater Austin area has 2 million people, and so simple arithmetic tells me that we should have 3 representatives max, right? 2 million divided by 700,000 is around 3, not 5. Something was wrong. I had to get to the bottom of it. So I went back to the map. I got out what any good Nancy Drew needs for her investigation: markers. My zip code, there in red, has 5 possible representatives. And I discovered that Greater Austin has 4 additional zip codes, colored in orange, that are each cracked into 4 districts with different representatives. Texas, you're killing me. Tell me, why on earth would people practically across the street from each other in these zip codes have 1 of 4 or 5 different representatives in Congress? Remember, each zip code is only 5 to 10 square miles. That means everyone in the zip code probably goes to the same handful of schools, the same HEB, the same post office, the same Torchy's Tacos. It's just a couple of neighborhoods. Well, Nancy Drew wasn't done yet. I kept investigating, and I discovered 18 additional zip codes in Greater Austin, colored here in yellow, that are cracked into 3 districts. Total here, yellow, orange, red, 25% of zip codes in Austin are splintered into 3 to 5 districts. I uncapped my last marker, and the guilty truth exploded in front of my eyes like a coloring book crime scene. A staggering 45 additional zip codes, colored here in green, are divided into 2 districts with 2 separate representatives. I stopped to take stock of the whole map. 75% of Greater Austin zip codes have 2, 3, 4, or 5 representatives. 75%. Here's what that means. In most of Greater Austin, knowing your zip code is not enough to figure out who your representative is in Congress. Only 25% of zip codes function as part of a connected community with a single representative to speak for them all. Adding insult to injury, guess how many zip codes nationwide have one representative? Nationwide, 90%. But good old Austin, only 25%. Nancy Drew knew this was no accident. This, in fact, was what Caesar, Machiavelli, and Napoleon might have called divide and conquer. The greater Austin area has been specifically targeted to break up its communities and fracture its representation in Congress. These days, the greater Austin area has been splintered into 7 different districts, each with a different representative. There are 5 counties in the greater Austin area, and all of them have suffered from this, but especially Travis County. It's been said that Austin is the largest city in America without a congressional district anchored to it. What's happened is that tiny little slivers, pinches of Austin, have been broken off and combined with Republican leading districts. And these 7 oddly shaped districts don't just split up Greater Austin. The big deal is that these 7 districts stretch way the hell far out into rural Texas, hundreds of miles away from Greater Austin.
Houston, we have a problem.
If I told you what these districts looked like, you'd never believe me. You've got to see them for yourself. Later, we'll talk about how when you put all of the districts that include Greater Austin together, they make the shape of a great big devil. But right now, let's zoom in and take a closer look at these crazy districts. Hey, squint and look closer. See those little pinches of the map that are circled in red? Those are the parts covering Greater Austin territory. The rest is rural Texas. First, the devil does Dallas. Texas, District 25, takes a pinch out of Austin, then heads up the highway 200 miles north all the way to the Dallas suburbs. Texas 10 starts out in Austin, then travels 200 miles east. Then the devil goes west. Texas 21 starts off in Austin, then takes a road trip 200 miles west through the hill country and ranch lands of West Texas, closing in on the border. Finally, the devil drives south on a scorching hot pleasure ride. Texas 27 starts off in Greater Austin, then drives 200 miles south to cool off in the sweet waters of the Gulf of Mexico, all the way down to the coast of Corpus Christi. Okay, nothing against Corpus Christi folk, but why should Greater Austin residents be split up from being in the same district as each other while they're stuck with residents from Corpus Christi?
Oh, hell no!
So we've got all these oddly shaped districts that each include just a little pinch of Austin. What happens when you put them all together? What type of multi-district mega monster does it become? Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I call him the Austin Devil. Greater Austin consists of 4,000 miles spread out over 5 counties. But whoa, the Austin Devil is a whopping 10 times the size of Greater Austin. It's almost 40,000 square miles, covering 49 counties. What this devil illustrates is how Greater Austin voting power is diluted into an unbelievably huge area of rural Texas, an area that's nearly 1/6 the size of Texas itself. The devil's work is to suck Greater Austin voters dry. It's a political vampire, a real gerrymandering bad boy, and it's out to swallow up all the votes it can from Greater Austin voters. When the Texas legislature drew up these congressional districts, they were ensuring that politicians could choose their voters rather than voters choosing and electing the representatives that they want. So now we know exactly how far the Texas state legislature was willing to go to disenfranchise Greater Austin voters. They went to hell and back, and they brought the devil with them. Now let's peek into the devil's hellhole and get a little closer. This is called packing and cracking. Packing and cracking are the Tweedledee and Tweedledum of strategies used by corrupt politicians for gerrymandering. Cracking involves splitting the opposition party's voters, in this case Democrats, and spreading them thinly across many districts to minimize their impact. Packing involves cramming the rest of the opposition party's voters into one concentrated district that they're sure to win. But meanwhile, votes from the opposition party don't spread into surrounding districts. Elections get stolen because the maps are rigged. Greater Austin is split into 7 districts, which each have one member of the House of Representatives in D.C. Texas districts 25, 10, 21, and 27 are all cracked. They're Republican-leaning districts, each with a splinter of progressive Austin locked inside. District 35 is packed. This is the district I like to call the Devil's Tongue. District 35 starts out in Austin and licks the I-35 corridor all the way down to San Antonio, devouring as many Democratic votes as it can, in mostly minority communities. Sorry, no, that's not democracy. In 6 states, God bless them, there's an independent, nonpartisan commission that's responsible for drawing up congressional districts. Thank you very much. But in Texas, it's the state legislature that does the job. And the problem is they've got a conflict of interest. And they use packing and cracking to try and keep one political party permanently in power. And it was like, boom, crash, I finally got it. This is what gerrymandering really means on a local level. It means being in a different district than parts of your neighborhood. It's undemocratic and unneighborly. And that's why polls show that Americans of both parties overwhelmingly oppose gerrymandering. Listen, in truth, Republicans of Texas should be just as concerned about gerrymandering as anybody else. If I go to a town hall meeting, I want to hear from my neighbors, both Republican and Democrats. But I want to hear from my neighbors, and I want my representative to hear from my neighbors too. I don't want my community to be ignored because my representative is paying more attention to other constituents spread vastly around the state because of gerrymandering. It hasn't been this way forever, and it doesn't have to be. The term gerrymandering was coined in 1812, and it's been around for 200 years, but it truly exploded nationwide starting in 2003. That year, gerrymandering hit Austin like a knife in the heart, and Austin was split from one unified district into many. Gerrymandering happens when a ruling party, it doesn't matter which one, abandons democratic principles to seek raw power and political advantage for themselves. But I don't want to depress you. I want to rev you up and motivate you. So here's what we can do about it. Long term, redistricting happens after every census, and it will happen again in 2020. So storm the state capitol in 2020 to demand that the maps be drawn fairly. In the meantime, we must be vigilant about all kinds of attacks on voting rights in our country. For example, this can happen when voter registration rolls are purged unnecessarily or polling places are closed. We can encourage voter turnout by pushing to move Election Day to the weekend instead of a Tuesday. Or even better, how about making Election Day a federal holiday? What else can we do? Plenty. We can fight for statewide reforms and lobby to have an independent, bipartisan commission be the one to draw up congressional district boundaries. We can support automatic voter registration. Some states that have passed these bills have seen skyrocketing registration, which can happen at the DMV or when you file state tax returns. We can follow the small but mighty example of Maine, the first state in our country to implement a more democratic system of voting called ranked choice voting, aka instant runoff voting. But seriously, look into it, especially if you're interested in a viable third party and more choice in American politics. But most urgently, we must vote in each and every election. The midterm elections are coming on Tuesday, November 6th, 2018. In this super important election, we voters will decide who represents us for all 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Also up for election are 35 out of 100 U.S. senators and 36 out of 50 state governors. In the House, each member serves a 2-year term, and every even year, you get the chance to vote for yours. So I'm not going to sit this election out, and you shouldn't either. I'm going to vote, and please, you should vote too.
If you don't like who's in there, vote them out. That's what election day is all about. And the biggest gun we got.
Only half of eligible Americans vote in presidential elections, and only a third tend to vote in midterm elections. So vote on November 6th.
Vote them out. And when they're gone, we'll sing and dance and shout.
In Texas, November 6th is the day to vote for a U.S. Senator, for U.S. Representatives to the House, for the Texas Governor, and for members of the Texas Legislature. Remember, those are the guys who are the ones responsible for gerrymandering and drawing up unfair congressional district maps in the first place. So vote on November 6th. Ultimately, elections are about voter turnout. Everyone should vote. Voting is about strength in numbers, and any district could be competitive, despite gerrymandering, if there's a raging surge in voter registration and turnout. And a tidal wave of voters could turn this election upside down and drown out the evil of gerrymandering.
Election day is coming around again.
I'm Danielle, and I love Austin, Texas. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen.